I've talked to a lot of people who've tried to buy a patient lift for home use, and the story always sounds the same. The pictures look perfect, the specs promise lightweight yet strong, but when the box finally arrives the lift feels clunky, the motor whines, and the whole thing ends up gathering dust in the garage. You've probably felt that hesitation yourself, wondering if you're about to spend a few $100 on a piece of equipment that will actually make daily transfers easier, or if you're just adding another piece of furniture you'll never use. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review I'm going to walk through what the aluminum electric patient lift actually does in a real home setting, who will get the most bang for their buck, and who might be better off looking elsewhere. First, let's talk about the problem this lift is trying to solve. Most families with a loved one who has limited mobility need a way to move safely from a bed to a chair, from a bathroom seat to a wheelchair, or even into the back of a car for a doctor's appointment. Manual hoists can be hard on the caregiver's back, and larger hospital-grade lifts are often overkill for a single-person household. The promise of an aluminum frame is that it's lighter to move around the house, while still supporting up to 300 pounds. That weight limit covers most adult patients, but it does mean you have to be sure the person you're lifting stays within that range. The first thing I noticed when I unpacked the lift was how light it actually feels. The aluminum tubing is noticeably less dense than the steel frames you see on commercial lifts, and the whole unit comes together with a few bolts and snap-in clamps. You can lift it out of the box with one hand, which makes positioning it next to a bed or a wheelchair a lot less of a chore. That's a real advantage if you live in a smaller apartment and need to store the lift out of the way after each use. The design folds down flat, and the wheels lock securely so you can roll it into a closet or even the trunk of a car. In practice, I've taken it from a bedroom to a living room and back 3 times in a single day without needing any extra help, and the whole process took about a minute per move. The motor is another point where the product lives up to the quiet claim. When you press the lift button, the motor hums at a level that's barely audible over normal conversation. That's not just a nice to have, it matters when you're moving someone who's sensitive to noise, or when you're doing the transfer at night and don't want to disturb anyone else in the house. The lift climbs at a steady, controlled speed, which gives the caregiver confidence that the patient won't be jostled. The control panel is simple, a couple of buttons for up, down, and stop, so there's no steep learning curve. I tested the lift with an adult who is about 5 feet 9 inches and 180 pounds, and the whole motion felt smooth from start to finish. Safety features are built into the design in a way that feels practical rather than gimmicky. The harness attaches to a sturdy frame that slides along the aluminum rails, and there are lock-in points that prevent the harness from slipping sideways. The lift also has an automatic stop if it encounters an unexpected obstruction, which could be a pet or a piece of furniture that got in the way. In everyday use, those safety mechanisms gave me peace of mind when I was moving a patient from a low-profile bed to a recliner that sits a few inches higher. The adjustable width of the frame lets you accommodate different wheelchair sizes, which is useful if you have more than one vehicle or need to switch between a manual and an electric chair. Now, let's look at the practical downsides. The 300-pound limit is generous for most home scenarios, but it does exclude anyone who is at the higher end of the weight spectrum. If the person you're caring for regularly exceeds that limit, you'll need to consider a heavier-duty lift, which will inevitably be bulkier and more expensive. Another consideration is power. This lift runs on an electric motor that plugs into a standard outlet. That means you need a nearby socket for each transfer, or you'll have to keep the cord long enough to reach a wall outlet. In my testing, the cord was long enough for most bedroom setups, but if you're moving someone in a bathroom without a conveniently placed outlet, you'll need an extension cord, which adds another piece of equipment to manage. The folding mechanism, while convenient for storage, does have a small learning curve. The first time I folded the lift, I missed a latch and had to read the quick start guide again. Once you get the rhythm, it's no big deal, but if you're a caregiver who's